art is universal in its inherent ability to connect people from everywhere. This new series of work entitled The Divine Moment was created in New York during the summer of 2020 when we all witnessed devastating pandemic that changed so many lives. In addition, we experienced mass protests throughout the US in support of racial equity and social justice for many brown and black people wrongfully murdered by the police. During the riots, protests, and pandemic lockdown, I knew I had to find a way to reconnect with self. This long and challenging year has created important memories for me in the studio and at home. In my stillness, I was able to recalibrate, let go, and live in the divine moment. Attention to my studio practice, life, and gratitude became a daily ritual of healing the collective consciousness. My method of art making by using process to document my subconscious moments in a way which I surrender control over the creation process, allowing the unconscious mind to guide me. Due to the pandemic, most of us found healthier ways to reconnect to stay mentally and physically safe. Finding a way to maintain this during this uncertain time was essential to many who were locked down at home with little social interaction. We have all reevaluated our time and what's important. This body of work is a reflection of that. First, I want to thank you for hosting me in the space, and you have been just amazing, and I've really enjoyed the process of showing here, so thank you so much. And thank you all who are here, both live and on IG. And so this exhibition highlights my time during the pandemic and really kind of focusing on the moments in time which I encapsulate in my line work and develop my artwork. And so I think for me, the divine moment is a culmination of how I put down and mark make in an actual moment in time.
So can I say that it took your lifetime to get to that divine moment, and it was spurred by the pandemic?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's a good point. I think part of my practice is I really work on. My line work is very continuous line drawing. It's very black contour-ish, and I'm really interested in capturing process over product. And so I think, yes, I have gotten, worked up until this point to get here, but I really think that I've been able to really focus my attention as opposed to before this. I was running from gig to gig and doing murals here and doing murals there, and now I'm in the studio and I'm like focused with my energy.
So what is your process?
So I like to get into my studio, burn my incense, get my little ritual going. I really enjoy, having all of the supplies in front of me. I really like working on black paper or black canvas. To me, the contrast is really nice, and I go at it. I don't really have like a prescribed idea of what I'm going to do. It's more like I just put it down in that specific time. And a lot of the images that you'll see in the work are either me, people that I've worked with in the community, some of the students I've worked with, my friends. You might see yourself in a painting that I do. So it's really kind of this subconscious, pulling from a subconscious place. And so you'll see that some of the images resemble me or that kind of sacred feminine archetype. And I'm really interested in highlighting women in kind of this positive light. And also my some of the people in the images are also my ancestors that I'm channeling throughout the work. And so I'm really digging into this kind of spiritual knowingness within me to be able to allow that moment to capture whatever it is that wants my vehicle to allow.
So would I be wrong to say that the pandemic forced you into that situation, or you had to dig in deep and let your past and the past channel through you?
Yeah, definitely. I think the pandemic allowed for me to have that space in which I can really go further, dig further in. I've consciously worked in this kind of process throughout the years, but I think being uninterrupted and allowing a full year of development for the work has been so good for me and has led me to this place of real confidence and not hesitating for that line work.
That's strange, because it dawned on me, or dawned on us, about, oh, we should ask Alex about doing an exhibition, not knowing that, that was the process that you're going through.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like a culmination of
Yeah.
things, so, cool.
Yeah, nothing happens accidental.
No,
right?
no, no,
Everything
no,
is
no.
serendipitous.
Yes,
Yeah.
no, there's a reason
So-
for everything.
So you were feeling me, I was feeling you, we
Yeah.
were like, all right, let's make this happen. But it's been, the work was created, I was consciously like, okay, I wanted to do certain things, I wanted to build a body of work, and I haven't been able to, because the murals, they take so much physical energy that by the time I'm done with it, I have maybe a day in the studio, but I needed like full-time studio, so I got it,
Yeah,
So in some ways I'm thankful for the downtime. that I was
Yeah,
able to
a lot
have.
of us. Because it caught a lot of people by surprise in the beginning.
Yeah,
And you had to adjust. If you didn't adjust, then you would be in trouble.
yeah.
So which
And I do that within my work. I adapt. So this is great because this makes me think of within my work. If I feel like I'm stuck or I can't let something out, I quickly adapt and go to the feeling good part of my practice, which is what really allows me to tap into that inner self,
Right.
like being able to be detached from the outcome, detached from making it look good. I don't care. I'm not really thinking about making it look good.
Right.
I'm really kind of reaching into a deeper place in my psyche and my spirit.
So, with that in mind, have you done things where you're channeling something that's negative, or you stay away from it?
No, I look at it.
It's not easy.
Yeah, I look at it. Because if I don't look at it, then it's like I have to look at it at some point.
Yeah,
So I
it's
look
denial.
at it, I channel it, I let it kind of spew out of me, regurgitate kind of the trauma that whatever it lived inside of me. And for me, art making started as a release, as a way to heal. So as a young girl, my parents were amazing, and they still are amazing. They were very strict with me, so it was. I would go into my room and I would create this little world of art, and that was my world. Like I can't deal with family or I can't deal with home. Okay, I'm gonna go into this little bubble and create my own reality. And so I still do that today. Like I still kind of go.
But that's your home. That's your
It's
home.
my home. It's
Yeah.
the way I can process and heal and let things go.
Cool. All right. So let me just switch the question from there. What's your background?
My background. So I was born and raised in Queens to Middle Eastern parents that migrated here in the 60s from Tel Aviv. I have an older brother and an older sister. My brother is 8 years older. He's a hip hop head. He was a DJ and a b-boy in the 80s. And so at a very young age, I was exposed to the culture without even understanding the name or the music I was listening to. And my sister is 12 years older, and she's like a disco funk queen, and she spent a lot of time in Studio 54 and
Oh, that's
partying.
funny.
And so both of those influences really kind of informed my young self as this kind of old traditional. My parents were very traditional, and they raised me with their values, but my siblings were bringing me into like the new world of what was happening. And so it was this kind of dual worlds that were colliding, which was very interesting for me. And so I loved graffiti and I loved hip hop because my brother and his friends were so cool. How could I not? They were spinning on the cardboard in front of our driveway. I didn't know what that was. I was 8 years old. But for me, it was fascinating, and I was greatly influenced by it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's fun because you got it secondhand from your brother and sister, where I was already in there.
You were
Because
in
I
there.
was sneaking into Studio 54, but then I was also part of, hip hop from the origin. So
Yeah.
that's
So
interesting.
I was a fan already.
Yeah.
I was already like a little girl, like running around, like
That's funny.
trying to do windmills. Like I was a little girl, I had no idea what I was doing. I was on my ass falling, So yeah,
So does any of that play into what you're doing now?
of course, so much of that early influence has gone into my work, and I like to, call myself a daughter of the generation. I was really inspired by my siblings, who were like a second set of parents for me. Because I had my parents that were the final say, but then my brother and sister, wherever I went, it was like the neighborhood was watching to make sure, so it was like, it really inspired me. And then I grew up with a lot of graffiti heads, right? Growing up in Queens, and we would walk the tracks, and everyone would be taking tags, and I would love that, and everyone would have boom boxes, and that was part of my early kind of individual development. When I was 18, I decided I was going to go to Parsons, and so I moved to the city to kind of run away from that. But then when I got to the city, I realized it's even more. There's more of that culture in New York, right? Because I was in Queens. And so I think it informed how I wanted to approach my art, how I wanted to have the conversation. And even in the work, when you see the public work that I do, the murals, it's not quite graph, but it's not graph, but it's muralism, but it's influenced by graffiti, and you'll see kind of this emergence or this shift from that generation, like the inspiration.
Right. Well, the influence.
Exactly.
So it's Alice.
It's Alice. I've managed to make it my own, like watching it from home and then watching it kind of develop in the world, and then being like, okay, well, what part of it feels like me?
Right. Okay, so about the world, you touching on something. This question: what do you think the artist, the role the artist has in the world, in society?
Yeah, we have a great responsibility. I feel like first and foremost, I'd like to say that we have a huge responsibility to the next generation, to our youth, to kind of usher them up or usher them forward into a space where they can feel comfortable to be their own selves. I know that because of this particular culture that I feel so in love with and that I'm part of, it really opened up a way for me to individually express myself and understand who I am as a person. It allowed me the freedom to be like, this is me, I'm unapologetic for me, and everyone's entitled to be themselves. And I think when we do that for youth, and when we do that for our kids, and when we demonstrate it to our kids, we create leaders, and we need more of that today, especially in the arts. We need more,
Voices. Yeah.
Voices, and we need to let the children know that there's so many opportunities in the arts. You're not going to be a starving artist. There's so many different avenues that you can make money in the art world. And so I feel like that's one responsibility we had as artists. I feel like we also have a responsibility to document the times that we're in. This show is sort of that. I'm more interested in, for me, the process of documentation or talking about what's happening. I'm looking at what I want to see, not what we're going through. So if you see images in the work that look positive or happy, or they're shifting or they're changing, it's because I'm looking towards that. For a while, I was focused on making work about the issue and about the problem, and what I realized is that it was making me sick, and it was actually making me repeat it.
Oh, okay.
So I started to change and think about, well, if I focus on what I want, then I'm actually manifesting it, but I'm also putting it in other people's eyes to also manifest, or to kind of create it in their reality.
Right.
And so that's another responsibility. And I do think that because we do work on the streets, we have also a responsibility to make sure that whatever messages we put up empower the communities that we live in. We come from New York, so we are exposed to a lot of art and culture. How do we contribute to the upliftment of our culture and our people?
That's tricky.
Yeah.
Because the way, 30 years ago, it was very cut and dry.
Yeah.
The way things are happening now, it's so fragmented. And it's funny because, like, when the piece that you did in Miami, I just remember the mirror part.
Yeah.
And I was like, she got it, because you captured that, or to me,
Yeah.
the fragmentation of things.
Yeah.
Like, and that was what, 3 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was about 3-4 years ago. Yeah, time seems to be moving fast because this pandemic was kind of like a sleeper year. But that piece. So I often depict goddesses in my work because I like to depict women in this goddess archetype of. We see so many ads where women are kind of subjugated to these negative kind of ways in which we represent ourselves. And so I like to depict us as gods and goddesses. And that mural is Goddess Ma'at, who's the goddess of truth and justice. But it was right during when the election was happening for Trump.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
And I was thinking about it and I was like, well, I feel extremely fragmented. And I feel like I don't want this to happen. And I really want to kind of look at the parts of myself that are broken. And so the broken mirror is symbolic of the broken pieces in which we put together, and those scars actually remind us how beautiful that journey was.
Well, because you put together, it's still a mirror, but now you have the veins of life,
Exactly.
The gray hairs.
That's right. The roadmap, right, of our journey. Yeah. That was an important piece for me. I felt really good about that work.
Where do you see yourself, let's say, I won't even say 5 years, in a year?
A year. So I have a show coming up in Denver that I'm preparing for within 7 months. So that's kind of something I'm working towards. I have another show this summer at the studio I'm at in Bel Anse, which is in upstate New York. I'm really enjoying the studio practice. I feel like I'm going to be a lot more thoughtful in the mural work that I take because I don't need to paint 40 murals a year. I just don't need to. I feel like if I can do 3 to 5 to 7 murals within a year that are fun and that are good for me, great. But I think I'm really headed more in the direction of focusing in the studio, and when I do the public work, I really want to do it to focus on working within community and working with youth to develop messages that are relevant in communities. And that's been my thing for close to 15 years now, and I want to focus more on that, working with more organizations and museums that really foster that. And in the art world, there's kind of this buzz thing right now with socially engaged work and all of that. And it's great that museums are now kind of hopping on board to that, right?
But it took a lot to get to that.
It did take a lot. And your generation really kind of banged down the door to make sure my generation could get to this place.
You don't think about it.
Yeah.
We don't think about it. We just do what we have to do.
Yeah, it was naturally. Yeah. And there was no term for it, right? It was it was just kind of natural that you guys did what needed to be done at the time.
Yeah, we got scars for it, but that's okay. Because the idea is to set up so that the ones behind you have access and get in easier.
That's right.
So that's that's the process, I guess,
And that's what I mean by the responsibility too, of how you guys did that for us. So now it's way easier for me to be able to do the work that I'm doing. So thank you.
No, that's cool. Are there any artists that influence you?
Oh wow, there's such a long list. So me and you have talked about Marisol.
Yeah, Marisol.
She's such a I just am so in love with this woman. She's so amazingly just smart to me. Like her approach of art making and her way of kind of unique. She was so rebellious to the art world, but she was so admired and revered as well. And I like that. I like the fact that she didn't really care about being validated, but she was revered and honored. And I think she opened the doors for a lot of us young New York women who wanted to do work that was, more conceptual and three-dimensional. And since I'm doing more 3D work now, I'm working on a commission right now from the Parks, Marcus Garvey Parks Alliance, and I'm doing my first public sculpture.
Nice.
So that will be this year as well. And so that to me is that's where I want to head. I want to do larger public commissions that are, that are significant, that really have an impact, But she is one of my biggest inspirations.
Cool. So for people that don't know, Marisol was considered one of the pop artists that came out in the early '60s, and Marisol was one of the prettiest women I've ever met. I mean, she's beautiful. She Venezuelan?
I think so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Beautiful, but she was in a field where it was dominated by guys, and she just tore it up. She did things that. So if you guys get a chance, you can Google Marisol, you'll see who she is. I mean, alongside with her, like Susan Rothenberg, Helen Frankenthal, these women did things that started. You know, they were part of a movement, but they were singularly huge.
Yeah.
So they set the tone for other people, which I think is what you're doing right now. Because what you're doing, it goes beyond. I can't explain it, but there's something that goes beyond it. And you see the show, okay, but then you recollect it later, like, oh wow, and it triggers, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
So you don't get that all the time with your work. I mean, with artists' work.
Yeah.
But
Well, I think it's because, if I may, I try to pull from a soulful place. I'm not really interested in the surface. Like, I'm interested in that place of, like, I want to, like,
the depth.
get you inside.
This body of work is a reflection of that. I allowed my mind, body, and hand to flow in the divine moments of life. This body of work documents this period in time channeled through my subconscious. As I settled into the acceptance of what is, I allowed abundance and good feeling to flow through me without trying to control or resist what was occurring around me. Challenges arose as I surrendered, but the art became my meditation, and the process was healing. In a new state of mind, I found ease, gratitude, and ultimate surrender to the physical and non-physical world. The fluidity and gestural quality of the work reminds us all to flow and embrace the moments in our lives.